You've thought about installing irrigation into your veggie beds, but it all seems a little too hard. Well, I'm here to show you how it's done, and it really isn't as hard as it seems. But first, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Michael, and I love all things fruit and veggie gardening. If you're a fan of that as well, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. But let's get growing. Probably the most common type of irrigation you're going to see in raised veggie beds is this brown line, which is a drip line. As you can see here, there's a little hole in the line which emits water, drips water out, hence why it's called a drip line. Depending on the brand that you purchase, the ratios of how much water emits from those lines may vary. So this drip line, I think the pretty standard drip line is 2 litres an hour. So that's what that will emit. Each dripper, which are located about 30 centimetres apart, 12 inches, will emit 2 litres of water per hour. So what are you going to need to get from the hardware store? Well, starting with the drip line itself, it will look something like this, a big roll of it. This is a big roll. I think it was about 100 meters. So depending on how big your veggie beds are, how big your veggie patch is, will depend on the size or the amount that you'll need to get. I think it also comes in usually 50 meters, 25 meters. So you may need to do a bit of calculating, or you could just grab a big roll and keep it on hand if you have any spare. So this drip line is 13 millimeters, 13 millimeter brown line, which is what it is sometimes called at the hardware store. There's going to be parts of your patch where you're not going to need drip line, but you're going to need to connect 2 sections of drip line. So maybe from one bed over to another bed, which means you're going to need some black line, 13 millimeter black line. You'll use this to join the brown drip line through to another section of drip line, so the water can travel through, but you don't want it to emit any water. An example of that is this bed here, which I've already created my drip line. I need to connect it across to this bed. So that means I'm going to use the black line to create a run. I'll dig it into the ground where Ace is and bring it up to this line where I'll add some more brown drip line. Now with all those bits of line, you're going to need something to connect them together, because you're going to have to create a grid shape in your bed. Well, if you're using a square bed or a rectangle bed. If you're using a round bed, you can create circles with the drip line. But you're going to need connectors that look something like this. So straight connectors. These ones are crosses, so you can have lines coming off each direction. What else have we got? T's are very popular. You'll need quite a few of the T's. And I've got here somewhere elbows. Elbows as well. So you can go around a corner. With those connectors, once you've connected them up to the drip line, you need little clamps that look something like this, which will clamp that connector and drip line together. So when you put the water on, it's not just going to pop off. So you can get plastic clamps like this, or if you've got a bit of extra cash, you can purchase metal clamps. Now the metal clamps are stronger and they will last a lot longer, but the plastic clamps work just as well, as long as you don't have really high pressure. If you have really high pressure, you might need to do a pressure reducer. I'll show you that because I'm going to have to put a pressure reducer on. The metal clamps are probably better in holding the drip line on with the high pressure. Otherwise, you can just go for the plastic. And now the 2 main tools you're going to need is some multi-grips to put those clamps together to clamp the clamps together, and then some sharp secateurs to cut your drip line and your black line. So you've got all your equipment. Now you need to measure up your lines that you need to cut to fit in the beds. If you want to be really technical, you can get a tape measure out and do it that way. But I just like to get my roll of line and lay it in the bed. Because my beds aren't too long, I can do it with my arms outstretched. And then to about the size that I need it. Then grabbing my secateurs, just give that a cut. And now with that one line that I've created, I can just measure it against the roll that I've got. And create all the other bits of line that I need. I also forgot to mention some pegs. Pegs are good for pegging down your line. Now, how much line do you actually need? Well, the drip lines, they say they will spread, the drippers will spread to about 50 centimeters. So anything under 50 centimeters, you should have overlapping areas of water. So with this bed, I've just gone with 4 lines of drippers and then the 2 lines at the end, which connects them all into one grid. So the water will flow around the whole circuit and then will flow back through to where the water comes out from. You've got your lengths of drip line cut. What I like to do now is place them in the bed approximately where you think they should sit. Easier to do if the bed is already empty, but if it's not, then you just have to work around the plants that you've got. And this is where the pegs come in handy, because the drip line has obviously been in a roll. It likes to roll up on itself. So I just use the pegs to peg down the bits of line in the approximate position I think they'll sit in the bed. I said I was going to do 4 lines, so spacing them out as evenly as I can. As I said before, you can get very technical and space it out with a tape measure, but nah, just go by your eye. It's usually pretty good. I've got my bed laid out with my 4 rows of drip line. And now it's just a matter of connecting them together to create that circuit of water that will travel around the bed. This is where the joiners come in. The majority of the joiners will be T's or elbows. Corner sections will be elbows, obviously. And it's just a simple matter of getting your little clamp, placing that over the end, pushing in the joiner. They go in pretty easily. And then using your multi-grips, gently clicking the clamp together as tight as it'll go without snapping it, and that'll hold that elbow into place. You've got an extra little piece of line which will be, you'll need to make some cuts too. Put your little clamp on, stick the joiner into place, and then just gently tighten with your multi-grips. I think these are called multi-grips. We have this section here and this end piece. You're going to need your secchies again. Make a cut at about on line with that end piece, and this is where you'll get your T piece. I'll keep saying piece, 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 piece. Put your little clamp on, stick in the T joint. So you can see here it's going to use a lot of pieces of joiners, so a lot of clamps, a lot of joiners. You could always calculate how many you're going to need, but it will be a fair few. And you get your multi-grips and connect it. Connect them all together. And then you just repeat this process around the whole bed until you have created a complete circuit where the water can travel through. You're wondering how the water gets in? Well, one corner of your circuit needs to have a T-piece with an end that comes off. So this is where I'm going to add some of the black poly pipe, and that'll feed into the ground and back through to the area where the irrigation connects to the water. I've completed all the beds now, so they have all the drip line installed and ready for some water. The job now is to connect the beds together so that the water will travel across. That is where your 13mm black line comes in handy. I've already installed one here, as you can see. So this is where the T is from one bed. I've added in a little section of black line, elbowed it down, and then dug a little trench between the bed and connected it to the one on this side. So that's the way the water is going to travel across. Now, if you really want to, and if I was really eager, I could try and dig out the section on the inside of the veggie bed and put this line on the inside to make it a bit less conspicuous, but I'm not, I mean, it doesn't really bother me. So I'm just going to stick it on the outside because it's the easiest way to do it. And then this little trench I'm just going to bury because it's a pathway that we'll walk over. The job now is to do those two beds and then the two behind me. I had to take a little trip into Bunnings because I needed some larger pipes. So this is 19 mil, and I've dug a little trench along this side. So this is the side where the water is going to be connected. So the 19 mil is going to sit there, and then I'm going to feed that up into the smaller 13 mil, which sits in the beds. And I'm going to do that. Hello. Do that by putting reducers on. So these little connectors, so the 19 mil will sit on that side and on that side, and then it reduces down to 13 mil here, and that's going to connect up into the beds. So this is what it will look like, going from 19 mil, 13 mil black poly, and then that goes up and over and connects into the bed. Now I just have to do it with all the other beds. I think I've finished. I've just done the line along here, which is the 19 mil, which tees up into the 13 mil that goes into the beds. The moment of truth is turning it on. I also forgot to mention I've put in a water reducer, a pressure reducer, because this tap, we have quite high pressure, and if I didn't do that, the likelihood of these pipes just bursting is pretty high. So this reduces the pressure down so it can feed into the 19 mil, and then the 19 mil reduces down further into the 13 mil. So the beds should hopefully not pop off on the corners where I've put the clamps in. Let's turn it on. I don't think I need to turn it full volume. You can still just turn it half a turn. And it looks like we have liftoff. Dripping out nicely. When testing your irrigation, it's always worth checking the farthest corner of the line. So this is at the opposite corner to where the tap is. And we have, you probably can't see it, dripping irrigation in my bed. I'm so excited. 3 years in the making. The next plan is to get a little, an automatic, like a Bluetooth tap timer, so I can set it up to go off during, or early morning. I don't have to come out and actually turn it on. I can do it via the tap timer. This end here, I've put in just a tap because I am going to extend that. I've got my orchard, or my row of fruit trees along the fence here. So my next job, not today, I've created these little tree rings that I'm going to put around each of the fruit trees. So the last final bit of the irrigation is to run a line along here and link up these tree rings so that all my fruit trees will also be irrigated. Thank you for joining me on my irrigation journey. A little bit of entertainment, but hopefully a little bit of education on how to install drip irrigation into your beds. It isn't really that hard once you get the hang of it. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Bye.